We're back here at SFA News Live. By the way, if you're walking on the downstairs hallway, we're all the way at the end. When you come in the door, turn left and come visit us. Come see what we're doing. The man next to me, I probably met first close to 40 years ago on the radio when I was doing a radio show here in New York at WOR Radio. Gary Hirshberg, one of the leaders of yogurt, number one, organic, number two, labeling, number three. I mean, the list just goes on. And on behalf of all consumers and all retailers, thank you. Thank you for doing everything that you constantly are doing. So give me the update, first of all, on Stonyfield. And then I want to move quickly on to some initiatives that you're working on that's going to affect every consumer, every brand that's here. And it's really important for people to pay attention to this. But first up, Stonyfield, what's going on?
Yeah, well, thank you, because you were there at the very beginning. We're having
and I still buy it. I still buy it.
Well, my tuition bills, thank you. We're in our 36th year now.
Wow.
You'll remember that when we started, no one was eating yogurt. No one knew what organic was. You and I would have these conversations. Yep. I always say we had a wonderful company, no supply and no demand.
Right.
But no, it's a $400 million company. You may have noticed. Of course, you did notice, but your viewers may. Last year, when Danone, our former owner, I sold to Danone, to remind your listeners and your viewers, in 2001. We acquired White Wave, and then the Department of Justice forced a divestiture. Right. So now, last August, we changed hands. We're now part of Lactalis, which is the biggest dairy company no one's ever heard of. It's a $23 billion family company.
But when you go to Europe, that's what you see all over the place.
All over the world. Yeah. It's actually really interesting. It's two brothers and a sister who are the board. It's an incredibly successful company. With a huge, when I launched Les Devaches, my organic brand in France, I competed with them. They're very knowledgeable about organic. The morning after the acquisition, they asked me to reinvest myself, and so we've, the marketplace has shifted. It's a lot of one-handed eating, a lot of pouches, a lot of tubes, drinks. I mean, those are really the rocket ships. Company skews much more kids and family these days than in my day, but Quartz, cooking for Quartz is back. Whole milk is back. I'm so thrilled.
Right. Yep.
We always, when we first met, that's all we did. Yeah. We always called ourselves the full fat family. And the company's doing some amazing things. One of the things we're doing to celebrate our 35th is we have this recognition that 21 million school children play every day on parks and school fields that are 91% of which are exposed to a cocktail of herbicides. So dicamba, 2,4-D, Roundup, which is really glyphosate, which is Roundup. And these are toxic, in some cases carcinogenic. And the truth is, no matter how much organic you eat, if you're rolling around in the grass chasing that soccer ball, your skin is the biggest organ on your body. You got a problem. So it's now known, folks here at Mount Sinai at the Pediatric Health Center show that the inadvertent exposure to herbicides on a day-to-day basis can impact your IQ, brain development, ADHD, autism. So it's really a problem. So we teamed up with a wonderful group of moms from Irvine, California, who converted their cities' fields to organic. And they call themselves now non-toxic neighborhoods. And so we've adopted 35 cities around the country. We'll be announcing the first 10 this coming week.
I hope one is Santa Monica.
Well, I'll just say we're in the hood.
Okay,
we're in the hood. And the idea is to convert these fields. And the cool thing is, on top of avoiding the toxins and getting better grass, healthier soils, better water holding capacity, biodiversity, more insects, more microfauna, it saves the town's money. On top of everything else, it's a taxpayer boon. So we're calling it Stony Fields. It's one of the most exciting ventures in my 36 years. So anyhow, a whole lot happening. The business is really healthy. Wonderful team. I just spent the week touring organic family farms. One of the really cool things in the face of a tragic demise of family farmers, which you know all about, is we're watching conventional farmers just collapse right now all around us. Pay price is too low, corn price is too high. But organic family farmers are rocking. We now support 1,750 family farmers. Wow. Average herd size nationally is 65 cows. Now, 80% of that is with Organic Valley, who of course you know well. 20% are our own direct farms. I brought bloggers around to the farms this week and just let the farmers tell their story. And it's it's still the same mission we began with way back when, and it's richer than it ever has been.
Well, I still have in my office. I don't remember whether it's the 25th anniversary or the 20th anniversary that you sent me. It was a commemorative cup that
Still.
said, yeah, that said either 20 or 25. But I still have that.
Nowadays I tell people I can't remember what year it was. I just try to remember which decade. So
Exactly.
I can relate,
Okay.
buddy. I
Okay.
can relate.
So let's move on to. I do want to say one more thing about the family farms. So the average family farm today loses about $6,000 a year. So they have to have another part-time job in order to just make ends meet.
Yeah, unless you're organic.
Yes, exactly. And also for conventional farmers, and this is a very tough topic to talk about, but their suicide rate is up considerably
we just
as
had 2
well.
in my state.
Yeah, and
they're under debt that they cannot get out from under.
Exactly.
And
that's
the milk
why
price isn't doing it.
if they just switch to organic, that has the demand there that they can get a fair price for, working with people like Stonyfield,
Yeah.
I mean, it becomes a much
just
better
to spend
relationship.
one moment on that, because I know you want to cover some other things. I mean, the real issue, what we're trying to help farmers to do is to focus less on pay price and more on net profit. And the cool thing is, when you have a 25 cow farm making money, they have time to do maple syrup. They have time to be diversified. They have time to be less dependent. I was on cow farms this week that literally are making money at 25, 35, 40 cows. The other thing is, unfortunately, at the moment, because of the failure of conventional, we actually have a surplus of organic milk. So this is really why I need to hang with you, because we need consumers to recognize this. I mean, you've said this forever. I'll just say it again. When you shop, you're voting, right, for the kind of world you want. And what consumers have to get is wherever they're shopping, Santa Monica or Boston or New Hampshire, they're voting for the kind of world you want. And to your exact point, there's no future in conventional dairy farming.
No.
I mean, people don't like me saying it, but you can't even make money at 1,000 cows right now. Right. And yet we have a backlog now of farmers who'd love to convert. All we just need is more pull through from the consumer.
Yep. And we need to work to get that. So moving on to one other project that you have that you started a few years ago called Just Label It. We have this confusion throughout the country.
Yes.
Just this country. The rest of the countries around the world, they get it.
Other 64 all get it.
Yeah, but...
really progressive countries like Russia and China give their citizens the rights to know on their labels.
Exactly,
we don't.
And we don't. And it's probably going to get worse
it is looking bad
before
now.
better. And I'll say something in a minute that I'll probably get censured for. But when we look at this, when we look at this whole fight about GMOs, and there are scientists that argue that GMOs are fine, scientists that say they're not fine, whatever. To your point, as a consumer, I should be able to walk into a store here in the U.S., pick up any product that's on the shelf and have it properly labeled with the information in English, not with a barcode, not with a QR code, not to have to go to a website to find this out.
Assuming you have internet service, by the way. Yeah,
or a mobile device that can read it.
Right.
And what bothers me so much is this is top of mind for consumers. Consumers want to know if something's GMO or not.
It's every consumer insight survey, of all ages say, more transparency.
Right. So that's what we want. But what we see people doing is putting like little stickers on apples that say gluten-free.
Right.
So that's what we're focused on when consumers want to know if something is genetically modified or not.
Yeah.
And frankly, with the current administration, without getting too political, I wrote a column in Forbes, and this is where I'll get in trouble, about Sonny Perdue rolling back. I'd worked with Michelle they're excited. Hopefully they just got an order from somebody. So you never know what's going to happen at the fancy food show, But when we take a look at, I'd worked with Michelle Obama on, school lunch program and everything that was done there.
Yeah.
And within, days, Secretary Perdue, says, okay, we don't need limits on sodium, we don't need limits on fat, we don't need limits on sugar.
We don't need scientific review panels.
Yeah, you don't need that. So I wrote this column that said, 2 overweight fat men, white fat men, are dictating our school lunch program. So when we look at just label it, what does the industry need to do?
Yeah.
How can we do it, and how can we help you make this happen?
Well, your timing, as you well know, could not be more crucial, because we've got about 3 days to July 3rd to get this done right. So let me back up a second, and thanks for the setup. Look, Just Label It, it's a coalition of millions of consumers who've written in to say simply what you just said. Agnostic on, we're agnostic on whether GMOs are good, bad, or otherwise. It's just we have the right to know. We have the same rights of citizens in Turkey and Russia and China,
Brazil,
and 64 other nations. And we need it simple, and we just want it stated. Don't want to have to look. So back up. We were able, through persuasion, and Congress will not forget for a long time that they got more letters and emails on this issue, thanks in part to you, but to all of us, 2 years ago, than on any other issue, including immigration, no matter what our current president says. And so a bipartisan law was passed in July of 2016 that required that the USDA come out with a set of rules for mandatory labeling by July of 2018. And this July 3rd, the comment period ends. This is 2 days from now, 3 days from now. So the rules, as were initially introduced, are, to call them wholly inadequate is to give them too much credit. It's an obfuscation. It requires, for example, the possibility that oils and sugars may be exempt. Well, that's 70% of genetically engineered food. It requires that you no longer use the one term that all Americans know now, GMO, and you have to use something called BE, bioengineered, and they even have a little logo with a smile on it. It requires that companies you could have a phone number or a text message or a barcode which assumes that there's internet service when you're shopping, or assumes you have a smartphone. None of which can be assumed. I live in rural New England. I can tell you there's almost never internet service inside these stores. So it's not very confusing what's going on. This is the foxes guarding the henhouse. And this is really the dying embers of an old way of thinking, right? It's 20th century thinking inadequately addressing a 21st century problem. Like you say, today's consumer knows we're warming the climate, knows biodiversity is important, knows hormones and antibiotics should be reduced and used only when we need them, knows that less pesticides is a good thing, and knows that GMOs, which unfortunately, whether you like them or not, they've been used to enable much more herbicide use. 90% of them are for herbicide-tolerant crops. The consumer just wants to know. She just wants to be able to make the choice. And what's happening is you've got the chemical industry, and don't forget these GMO, these seed companies are chemical companies. We just had Bayer buy Monsanto.
And what they did in a day is they got rid of the Monsanto name.
They got rid of the Monsanto name, which any of us would have done. And they've now created a $160 billion juggernaut. Meanwhile, by the way, the Department of Justice didn't let Stonyfield and Horizon get a couple $100 million of organic milk, but I won't go off on that. I'll get censured also. But look, in the end, I'm happy that they divested us. We have a great new owner. But the bottom line, Phil, just to cut to it, is that we have until July 3rd to comment. Now, 50,000 people have signed the petition at justlabel.org saying, look, these proposed rules are wholly inadequate. This is not what we had in mind. In fact, even Senator Roberts and Senator Stabenow, this is not what they had in mind, the bipartisan senators, because it's just hidden. If you're going to exempt 70%, guess what? It's going to be, we're going to be in the courts forever. And it's going to, and you know, these companies think that they're going to be successful by avoiding and hiding, but they're not, because the consumer interest is not going away.
Look, to be honest with you, probably in the 1950s, 1960s, you could get away with it. But because of folks like you know, really educating people, putting a clean label out and so on, people are not stupid.
No.
They're not. And this whole idea of, again, shopping with a barcode, having to go to a website, look at it, this is stupid.
Yeah.
And also, you know, every time that there's some trade group that fights anything, they say how many billions of dollars it's going to cost, you know, to change the label. Not true. You
Not
look
in
at what,
one of the 64 nations has it cost more.
Yeah, and you look at what Denise Morrison did at Campbell Soup.
Right.
You know, like this, all of a sudden on soups, it said if it did contain GMO ingredients or not, and that was it. And you look at certain groups, these trade groups that have become dinosaurs
Yes.
that everybody's
and
leaving.
many have left. Yeah.
They're leaving because they just don't understand where the consumer's going.
But by the way, you make a really good point to your viewers. I mean, first of all, justlabel.org, get your name on the petition. You can do that between now and Tuesday.
Do it. You only
we really
have
need it.
till Tuesday.
Yeah, till Tuesday. But
Hurry up.
second, and you can also write to the USDA. But third, these large companies who have labeled, and Campbell's deserves credit.
Yep.
M&M Mars deserves
Yep.
credit. Let them know you appreciate that, and let the bigger companies who haven't know that you're going to buy from companies who voluntarily. And this is the problem now in this administrative environment. We have the same thing with the organic checkoff program. This
Right.
Where we were going to have the ability to have our version of the milk mustache, just organic promotion. Now we're going to have to do it voluntarily, and that's what we're going to have to do with labeling. It's nothing in this, the non-GMO project is not being affected. If your viewers want absolute certainty of non-GMO, buy organic, obviously. Right. But really, the big companies like Denise, and it may have taken a woman, by the way, just to give credit where it's due, but the big companies who've done this really need to be thanked and applauded because. What they said to us is, and the reason many of them have left the GMA is they don't want to be put in a position between them and their consumer.
Exactly.
We all work for the consumer.
Exactly.
So this is real simple. It's not good, bad, or otherwise. It's right to know, and no one can argue with that.
No, absolutely. Well, Gary, as always, thanks so much for
It's so
everything.
good to
Keep
see
up
you.
the great work.
Thanks.
Keep
Thanks,
up the
my
great
friend.
work. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more SFA News Live right here on YouTube, Facebook, and go to Just Label It to get your name on that list. .org. JustLabelIt.org. Do it by Tuesday noon.
Exactly.
It's a challenge. Do it. Okay.
Thanks.